Welcome to First Minister's Questions Review. This week I'm joined by two special guests. Elliot Bulmer.
Good morning.
Of the Constitution Commission. I'm not sure what your title is there.
Research Director.
Research Director. Doctor.
Yes.
Of Philosophy.
Indeed.
Good.
Teacher of the love of wisdom, apparently.
Good. Alex Grant.
Congratulations.
An executive from the Constitutional Commission.
The job's worth.
Job's worth.
Aye.
And the regular contributors, Phil Attridge, former politician, Norrie Stewart, political blogger, and myself, Stuart Lockhead. Well, I'll start at the far end with Norrie. Today we had all three opposition leaders making they all got to ask a question, even wee Willie. What did you think of today's?
I actually thought Joanne did well. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row. She did all right. She's there to attack him. She did attack him. A bit unfortunate that it was an act of God. You might accuse Alexander of being God, but he certainly doesn't control floods. And it was a flood apparently that led to Grampian having a longer waiting list than usual. She went down the NHS route. They're always going to do it. There's always something in the NHS.
There's always something wrong with the NHS.
You know, and it's fairly safe ground. Not particularly impressive, but her delivery, I thought she did well today. Alex got right into it. No messing. Rolled up his sleeves and polished his oatmeal boots and put the boot in. He did well. He beat her, but she is definitely getting more confident.
She seems to stand. As soon as she stood up, she seemed to be more confident.
Yeah,
today.
she's definitely getting more confident, and she's stopped wearing jackets that look like she's camouflaged for some posh jungle. She's beginning to look the part. She definitely is. Still reading from a script, but it's not as obvious, and hands aren't shaking. So, from a delivery point of view, yeah. Content, not impressed.
Ruth?
Well, Ruth doesn't do badly. You know, I was a bit surprised because normally Ruth's got an answer to the question that's a bit nastier than the question.
Yeah.
That didn't happen this week.
You mean like it's all down to the Tories down south, or your question is the opposite of the policy of the Conservative Party down south?
She's usually got some feedback. I would disagree with you to the extent it was plainly obvious when she asked the question. She knew what the next hit was, and it was, well, your pals up there have actually contradicted you. She did say that. I mean, he got round it, but she was actually suggesting.
Yeah, but I mean, she's been there before.
No, I know she has.
What, second, third time she's asked the same question.
Same question, I know, but she obviously thinks there's some mileage in it.
No, it's not working for her.
No, I wouldn't disagree with that.
But she's competent. I mean, she delivers
well. Alex was very firm in refuting what she said.
Yeah, so I mean, he's confident he can prove that the legal challenges led to the delay.
It's also a local issue for him,
as I mean, in both questions, he did the same with he stuck to the Grampian question, which is his.
And what about the milk one?
Willie.
Well, I mean, Willie revisited the poll list again. About who's got the power over the budget. But, you know, the discussions are tomorrow. And it was always going to be Alex's way out. And he did it.
Well, what about sticking to policy and not playing the man or the woman, as you might be?
Well, Nicola got a bit of a kick in.
Yeah, again, I kind of predicted that.
Yeah, you did.
I wonder what they would do if she was standing in for the First Minister. I wonder if they'd take her on if she could answer for herself.
I think she'd make mincemeat.
But after the kicking that Salmon's had in Westminster, both the Lords and the Commons, maybe everybody just had run out of ways to kick him.
All right, then, Phil.
Ruth, well, I wasn't that really impressed because, again, she looks very shifty when she's reading from this script. The eyes go up there and they roll around there, and I did notice the tremor. But the hands were trembling together, so maybe you didn't know. Not Ruth, that's right. Joanne. Why did I say Ruth? Oh, maybe I was going to give her a point.
Doubtful.
Content not there again, and it's all attack Nicola, simply because they're actually probably scared of Nicola Sturgeon, actually. That's probably one of the main reasons why they keep attacking her, because she's also very, very popular. Salmond, I thought, was absolutely, he came out fighting, and I must admit, when he whacked her right below the belt, actually, with Mr. Sawa, him and his well, if I could use the term, the Vidcanites down in the British Parliament, you know, just showing how proud they are of being Scottish and all the rest of it. Trouble is, they're all terrified because if Scotland does get independence, they're out of a job. They'll have to probably move down south to get a job. Ruth, good delivery. I'll give her that. But again, and you can see it's that Tory because they're all laughing. They're not really interested in the answer or anything. They're just being nasty Tories. But she did do a good delivery.
The nasty part.
That's a tautology, by the way. Nasty Tories.
Nasty Tories, yes. Nasty terrible Tories. Well, that's why I thought Milk Monaghan. You know, he stands there and he kind of looks, and well, it's kind of he's trying to be statesmanlike, but he's like a wee boy that's just got a job as a milkman and he's got his badge and he's doing his best to do it. So, I'm not impressed.
Not impressed. Well, Elliot.
Well, I wanted to make a sort of more general point first of all, which is that it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to watch First Minister's questions. Here we have a system of parliamentary democracy in which, rather than kneeling at the feet of a king and saying, yes, sire, no, sire, 3 bags full, sire, we put people into a bear pit of a parliament and get them to argue it out. And you know, whenever I watch these things, sometimes you get frustrated by the sheer politicking of it and the point scoring, dare I say. But that serves a useful function, and then you get into, you know, some practical bread and butter constituency questions as well. So, you know, I'm glad that we live in a place where this can take place. But what struck me more than anything else was that it only works when you have a strong, credible opposition. And Scotland does not have a strong, credible opposition. Looking at Joanne Lamont and her performance, well, she might have improved, but she is not a credible alternative for the office of First Minister. There is nothing in her performance or her conduct that gives me the slightest shred of confidence that she could do a better job.
You couldn't see her standing shoulder to shoulder with Angela Merkel at
no, not in the slightest.
Meeting?
I mean,
sorry about that.
The First Minister's first comment, his response to the opening question, was statesmanlike. He did not make those initial comments about the terrorist situation in Algeria as a party leader or as, you know, the head of an overgrown regional assembly. He spoke as the national leader and as a statesman, rising above party politics.
He does enjoy that role.
He does. I mean, he'll make an excellent president one day, but no, he suits that role of national leader perhaps even better than he suits the minutiae of a policy making.
Well, I like the idea that she might be a better president than prime minister. So
yeah, I mean, if there is going to be an independent state, the initial plan, as we all know, is to keep the Queen. But I think he would relish that job of being a non-executive head of state, a kind of roving ambassador for Scotland, and he'd probably do very well at that, because he definitely steps up into that statesman-like role very well, in a way that Joanne Lamont, well, delivery may be a bit better, but the content's just not there. She doesn't have what you need to be in a high-level leadership, policy-making role, which is intelligence.
If she was saying, if we were back in power, we would be doing it very differently. But she never does.
No.
Because she's afraid to reveal what the new Labour policy will be.
Oh, no, because we didn't do it well. That's the whole point. That's why she doesn't visit that, because we didn't.
It's not just that, though, Phil. Miliband doesn't do that either. And oppositions, Elliot's 100% right in terms of credibility as a statesperson. Yeah. But oppositions see their role as attack, attack, attack. Don't say attack, attack. We would have done this. They avoid that like the plague. Miliband does it every week, and because Cameron stands up every week and says, "Well, it's all very well for you to say that, but what would you have done?" And of course, he never answers it because he sees his role as, well, actually, I don't have to answer that.
Yeah, that's true.
My role is to undermine your credibility.
I don't think that makes for healthy politics.
Oh, no,
I think it makes.
No, you're right. No,
It
you're
doesn't,
right.
but it's the same as Westminster. That's what I'm saying. It's
What about the minor players then? Ruth and Willie?
Ruth, I think she comes across as a little bit more statesman-like. In the non-gender
bear in
specific
mind,
sense of the word.
bear in mind she's bound to perform. She was a professional television presenter.
Yeah. She comes across better. She asked a very sort of specific question. She then went down this sort of strange line of, you're lying to the House again, aren't you?
Yeah.
You need to go and have your weekly trips to correct the record,
Yeah.
which I thought was a bit of a cheap shot.
Nasty story.
Your words, not mine. As for the illustrious leader of the Liberal Democrats in Scotland, this fine and mighty party of Gladstone, look what it has become. Do you know, I have a certain sympathy for him on this question. The structure of how policing is governed, funded, inspected, monitored and held accountable is absolutely fundamental to the health of a democratic society. And the police authority legislation, I don't think was a very good piece of legislation. There might be a case for having a single national police authority in Scotland. I think there's a much stronger case also for backing that up with sort of municipal police, but that's a different question.
No, I think you're right. I agree with you.
He raised an important question, and I feel that does deserve a decent answer.
No, I think you're right. It's a bit like whenever the question of the McGraggy Lockerbie conviction comes up, and the firmness with which the executive, not just Alex Salmond, but also Kenny McCaskill, rejects any possibility that anything went wrong. It worries me.
Well, they don't actually. I take issue with you slightly, Stuart. It does worry me as well, but they don't actually say that. They say it's not for us to make any comment on that, because the SCCRC made it quite clear that there were several significant issues in the investigation. They keep getting out from under by saying, well, it's nothing to do with me, somebody else has got to sort that out. That's true. Which I think is a problem.
That's fair. Alex, what do you think about the performances of our four illustrious leaders today?
Okay, well, it was certainly less of a steady Rami than it's been in the past, which has been, as you guys have said in some of your previous reviews, and as what's his name, Pete Warrior actually wrote quite a good article about it and wondered whether there was a strategy to basically totally undermine the credibility by turning it into a steady Rami. I actually thought it was a lot better than some of the previous things. I agree with Elliot totally in terms of Joan Lamont's ability, although again somewhat cynically, I suspect Ed Miliband is quite happy to have Joan Lamont as the leader of the Labour Party in Holyrood, because all it says is Holyrood isn't up to the mark. I actually believe if they had the choice between putting somebody who actually could deliver the way Elliot said the leader of the opposition should be able to deliver, and put in a second-rater, they'd choose a second-rater, because I really do believe their strategy is don't make it look credible enough for people to take seriously. And I have met and continue to meet people whose opening gambit is, well, of course, it's a bloody, it's rubbish.
What was Tony Blair's
Parliament?
What was Tony?
Paris Council.
Yeah, just a
Imagine if we had a Robin Cook as the leader of the opposition.
Well,
a different thing. But look,
anyway, let's just go back.
Let's run through
I think Joan Lamont, despite that lack of gravitas, actually, she has a strategy, and the strategy, as she articulated it, is the NHS issue is another example of your dissembling. You continue to lie, and they're going to keep on about that. Anything they can come up with that says, well, actually, Nicola Sturgeon said this, it turned out not to be true. Now, in Salmond answering the question, talked only about Grampian. The problem you have here with the NHS is there seem to be several examples of either poor accountability or straightforward lying. They don't have the evidence of the latter, but there certainly seems to be some suggestion that NHS health boards in Scotland have been up to some accountability dissembling that they shouldn't be doing.
That's true.
So I think the line of attack is right, and I think she got the boot in quite well when she actually said, I think there ought to be a right to having a straight First Minister and a right to tell allusion to the constitutional bit. Anyway, I actually thought she did quite well compared to various other things.
What about Alex?
Salmon, I give him 11 out of 10. I think he pulled her legs off and tied him up. I mean, I think I thought he was at his best today because he did some of the things that I certainly think when he does it well, really deliver. He answers as much of the question, typical leader, as he wants to answer. Then he goes on the attack, and then he throws in, as we discussed beforehand, I wonder if he'll mention anything about what happened in the Section 30 debate in Westminster this week, and he did. And he didn't ask him to apologise for Anas Sarwar. He made Anas Sarwar look like a plonker and actually said that to her. So I thought the combination of everything he did, I'd give him 11 out of 10. I thought he did really well.
What about Ruth?
Well, I agree again with what Elliot said about Ruth. Her delivery, and what you said, but she's been a TV presenter, so her delivery is modulated. It's good stuff. But actually, I don't think she, is this a big deal? It's not a big deal. I mean, whether it's 100% correct or not, that the 500 million actually is all dealt with, in terms of the bypass around Aberdeen, I don't know. But she should be, as the Tory party who run the UK. She ought to be able to come up with something better than that, in my opinion.
You think she'd have some decent research?
Well,
facilities and resources.
You would. I mean, again, she actually asked the question. She knew he was going to say it, and then she was going to say, right, sorry you saying that, but you're lying again, because your pal up there and your pal over there actually said something else in the press this week. Now, Salmon ignored that and just went back to the same story. He said, look, do you think, should we have spent the money on something else? Should we have wasted it? Do you think we wouldn't spend the money? So it was actually quite good. So she was okay. Wee Willie, actually, I thought, I think he's on a good subject here. Interestingly enough, it was the only element of the Liberal Party manifesto that had any real credibility. I don't think it did them any good, but everything else in the manifesto they either told lies about, like student fees or whatever, mumble grunt. So they did.
The word credibility. It was a credible opposition before the election.
Yeah.
And I agree. I have worried myself a little bit about that.
I find it quite interesting watching the Commons Section 30 debate that the sensible big parties were the Liberals.
Mm-hmm. Although Tavish Scott and the Lords basically stuck the boot in as well. I grant you, he focused on the question. He said the question was completely biased.
They were arguing the point that the SNP had a landslide and a mandate, therefore you didn't really have a choice. You had to give them the Section 30.
Right.
Or you had a constitutional ram coming up.
Well, in fact, we'll do a little bit on the Constitution after we finish this. Well, let's try run through the scores, Nori, if you don't mind.
To do yourself then, Stu, what did you, Alex?
Start with me, Alex. Yeah, I have to agree. I think Alex had a much better performance this week. And there were a number of quotes which I always write down, and I can always forget, but I'll use them at some point in the course of this week. Yes, I think he's back up there. 7.5.
That's be awkward.
Yes. Joanne, again, she stood up a bit like last week. I watched her body language when she first stands up, and the hands weren't shaking when she stood up, and she wasn't going like this with the paper this week. John Swinnick telling off the other week for demonstrating her.
Oh, did he?
Oh no, it was Nicola was shaking. Anyway, they kind of took the mickey out of her performances, but she stood up with confidence. And as everybody says, the NHS is always going to be there as a target. It's a big monster bureaucracy. There will always be holes to be picked on. And in a sense, other people predicted the NHS would be her policy topic. I also predicted that somehow or other the boot would go into Nicola Sturgeon, because that seems to be the strategy. So that went in. I'll give her 6. It's not too bad. Ruthie, I'm going to write off the fact that she's a presenter, in the sense I'm going to reduce her score. She's always going to be competent standing there, so she shouldn't really get scored just for being. She needs to be scored on what she says and her reaction, especially her second question. I don't think she came out of that kerfuffle very good, so I'll just give her a 3. Willie, I'll give him his due. He's not rude. He sticks to his guns. He was polite with his objection to Salmon's first response, and is it a worthy issue? I'll give him a 4.
Ooh. Phil?
Salmon, I'll give him a straight 10 because he was spot on the way he answered the questions, or the way he presented himself. Joanne, it's the personalising. It really gets on my nerves. Just really, really gets on my nerves. And it's that shifty look. She should really actually go on some kind of media course. She should actually present herself. No, the eyes are up and the eyes are sideways. Nixon went past my mind while I was watching it. And apart from that, as being a party member, I'm sorry, I want somebody that is a credible opposition leader, and she's not. So, 5. Ruth, not really much.
Don't forget she's a Tory.
Oh no, I am totally forgetting she's a Tory.
Oh, no, you're
can't.
not.
With the laugh and all the rest of it, I can't help it, I'm totally biased. But I'll give her 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
not bad. Will it?
Willie actually gave, but when you actually look at the reaction from Salmon, when it came to answering Willie's, it was the only one where he just never shot straight in. Kind of very, very slight hesitation going. So I'll give Willie a 4.
Whoa!
For a milk monitor, it was a good milk monitor.
All right.
Elliot?
Salmon 9. Very good. I'm not going to give him a 10 because 10 is perfect, and not quite sure, but it was good. Particularly 9 for being statesman-like. Joanne Lamont, I'm going to give her only 1 point, and the reason for that is that I have no credibility in her. She gives no idea of having credibility and of intelligence, and to me that undermines anything else that she says or does. She's not, in my view, fit for the role. So 1. Ruth, I'll give her 3. Boff is all I can say there. She got up. She sounded presentable. She asked a question. Kind of didn't really get anywhere. 3. Fair enough. Willie Rennie, I'm going to give 5. A little bit wooden, but sensible question. He strikes me perhaps as one of these people who doesn't see politics as a game, that he sees it as serious business. And I like that. I like dull, boring politicians that understand that what they're engaged in is serious business. So I'm going to give him a 5.
Always tries to be dignified.
Yeah.
He doesn't do the mucking about.
No. I want to give 7 points to the Deputy Presiding Officer, who I know we're not scoring, but
I agree with you. I think he was much better than Tricia Martin.
Yeah.
And
I think he's got natural authority. He only had to speak once.
I have to say that Willie Rennie and his victory speech when he won the Dunfermline by-election to become, I forget who he replaced, appeared on the Daily Politics show yesterday. It was part of the Guess the Year and Win the Mug.
All right.
So he made a national appearance.
Was that any good, the speech?
No, it's just a clip, you guys. He was rubbishing Gordon Brown, basically.
Oh, that's
Not too. Alex first.
Right. As I said during the process, I'd give Alex 11, but I agree with Elliot. Nobody's perfect. I give him 9. I think Elliot's number's probably right. Although, to be frank, I can't off the top of my head say I've seen him better, but let's stay with 9 to be sensible. I'm very torn about John Lamont. I agree totally with what Elliot said, but a scriptwriter, I think, is on the money in terms of what she was attempting to do, as opposed to what the Tories were trying to do. Because as I said earlier, I think Ruth Davidson's question is, as somebody else said earlier, they're all sitting there laughing like a bunch of bloody hyenas.
She's just trying to make an impression,
I know.
so she'll get a
job
safe Tory
in
seat.
England. Exactly. Anyway, look, so 9 for Eck. Joanne, I'll give her 5 because I think the strategy was good. She's still what she is, but the strategy's good. Ruth Davidson, I go down to 3. because I think her delivery's good, but who cares what she was talking about, and the way she did it wasn't worth talking about, really. Wee Willie, I'll give him. I give him 7 actually.
Oh,
Because I think the question as we discussed worries me. I think the way he responded to X's first response was actually quite smart, and he has tried, as you guys have pointed out over recent weeks. I think he started off with a strategy of trying to be cute, and he decided, I better stop being cute and I'll just stick to being serious because we're in enough trouble. And I don't think it's going to get him particularly far, but I think his question was good and the way he asked it was good. So he's worth a 7 to me.
So what do we get there, Norwich?
Well, we'll start with the bottom, Ruth, but I'm sorry, I think there's an inbuilt bias. She's not that bad. She's on a 14.
Mm-hmm.
Willie next on 22. So, I mean, considering the lack of gravitas that the party has, he's obviously doing a good job for them, I would say.
At the moment, yeah.
Joanna Lamont, 23. Cool. But definitely an improvement. We've scored Willie higher. Alex, way ahead. Double points for everybody else. 45.5. That includes 2 10s.
And a 7 for the Brazilian.
And a 7 for everyone else, who I think
Which I'd agree with.
we all agree
They would all say that.
brings
I'd give it a 7
more
for him as well.
authority.
Yeah.
Although you have to ask yourself, are we back to the? He didn't have anything to deal with today, so are we? Would Tricia Marriott have done just as well by doing what he did?
Maybe
He sounds as though he's got a bit more authority.
He's existing authority. They probably the MSPs are used to his authority and they just behave better.
Yeah, that's probably it.
When we don't see them, when it's not being broadcast.
But I mean, the last time he didn't muck about. Like you would sort of expected deputy to take a bit of a back seat. He definitely.
So he could well have been. He could have got the second highest score if we say 7 times 5.
Yeah, 35.
Yeah, no, that's probably true. Yeah.
I think we should score him because I think it'll be important in the coming 18 months.
Okay, well I agree with you.
How Parliament.
Yeah, well, I'd agree. I'd give him the 7.
Well, look, I'll have to say thank you very much, gentlemen, especially our special guests, and we look forward to FMQs next week.